My life was loud until Japanese minimalism turned down the volume. Ever feel like your life is just too much? Like you're drowning in stuff, noise, and constant chaos, but you can't figure out why you feel so empty inside? What if we told you that the secret to finally feeling calm doesn't come from adding more to your life, but from taking almost everything away? The chaos we were living in. Let's be honest here. We were living in absolute madness, and we didn't even realize it. Our homes looked like they'd been hit by a tornado that never left. Clothes piled up on chairs that had become permanent storage units, kitchen counters buried under appliances we used maybe twice a year, closets so packed that opening them felt like playing a dangerous game of Tetris where everything could come crashing down at any moment. But here's what really got us. It wasn't just the physical mess. Our minds were even louder than our spaces. We'd wake up already exhausted, thinking about the million things we had to do. Our phones buzzed constantly with notifications we felt obligated to check. We were buying things we didn't need with money we barely had just because everyone else seemed to be doing the same thing. We thought we were living the dream, but honestly, we were just living in a nightmare we decorated really expensively. The breaking point came on a random Tuesday evening. We were sitting in our apartment surrounded by all this stuff we'd worked so hard to buy, and we felt absolutely nothing. Empty. Disconnected. Like we were living someone else's life. That's when we stumbled onto something called Japanese minimalism. And honestly, it sounded crazy at first. Live with less? In a world that keeps screaming at us to get more? So what even is Japanese minimalism? Japanese minimalism isn't just about throwing everything away and living in an empty room like some kind of monk. It's actually way deeper than that. And once we understood it, everything started making sense. The Japanese have this concept called ma, which basically means embracing empty space. Not because emptiness is sad or lonely, but because space gives us room to actually breathe and think and exist without constantly bumping into things, both physically and mentally. Think about traditional Japanese homes for a second. They're designed with this beautiful simplicity, where every single item has a purpose and a place. Nothing is there just for decoration or because it was on sale. There's this other concept called Danshari, which is all about refusing things we don't need, disposing of things we don't use, and separating ourselves from our attachments to material possessions. When we first read about this, we thought it sounded extreme. But then we looked around our apartment again and realized we were literally surrounded by things we didn't need, didn't use, and had weird emotional attachments to for no good reason. Japanese minimalism also teaches something called Mottainai, which is about feeling regret when something is wasted. It's not about being cheap or depriving ourselves. It's about respecting our resources and only bringing things into our lives that we'll actually value and use completely. The Japanese don't see minimalism as punishment. They see it as freedom. And we were about to find out just how right they were. The turning down begins. Starting this journey felt overwhelming because we'd accumulated so much over the years. But Japanese minimalism taught us to start small and be intentional about every single decision. We began with our closets, which honestly looked like a retail store had exploded inside them. We had clothes with tags still on them from 3 years ago, shoes we bought because they were trendy but hurt our feet, jackets for weather conditions we'd never actually experienced where we lived. The Japanese have this rule where if something doesn't serve a clear purpose or bring you genuine joy, it shouldn't take up space in your life. So we started asking ourselves hard questions about every item. When was the last time we actually wore this? Does this fit our life right now or the life we wish we had? Does seeing this item make us feel good or guilty? The answers were pretty shocking. We got rid of about 70% of our wardrobe, and you know what happened? Getting dressed became easier. We actually started wearing and enjoying the clothes we kept instead of letting them rot in the back of the closet. Then we moved to the kitchen, which was its own disaster zone.
We had 3 different types of blenders, gadgets that were supposed to make cooking easier, but just made cleaning harder, and enough coffee mugs to serve a small army. The Japanese approach taught us that quality beats quantity every single time. We kept one really good knife instead of a drawer full of dull ones. We kept the tools we used daily and donated the rest. Cooking became less stressful because we weren't constantly digging through cluttered drawers trying to find what we needed. The mental volume goes down too. And here's where things got really interesting and honestly kind of emotional for us. As our physical spaces became quieter and calmer, something unexpected happened to our minds. We started sleeping better. We could actually focus on tasks without feeling scattered in 20 different directions. That constant low-level anxiety we'd been carrying around for years started fading away, and we didn't even realize how heavy it had been until it was gone. Japanese minimalism has this beautiful side effect that nobody really talks about enough. When you stop filling your life with stuff, you create space for experiences and connections that actually matter. We stopped spending our weekends shopping for things we didn't need. Instead, we started taking long walks, having real conversations with friends without constantly checking our phones, and picking up hobbies we'd abandoned years ago because we were too busy. Turns out we weren't too busy. We were just too cluttered. There's actually research backing this up too. Studies from Princeton University found that physical clutter in our environment competes for our attention and makes it harder for us to focus and process information. When we have too much stuff around us, our brains are constantly working overtime trying to manage all the visual input. By clearing our spaces, we were literally giving our brains permission to relax for the first time in years. And that relaxation showed up everywhere in our lives. We were more patient, more creative, and honestly, just happier in general.
Living in the quiet now. These days, our life looks completely different from how it used to be. Our home isn't empty or cold or boring like some people might imagine when they hear the word minimalism. It's warm and inviting, but everything in it has earned its place. We can clean our entire apartment in about 30 minutes because there's no clutter to work around. We know exactly what we own and where everything is, which sounds simple but feels absolutely luxurious when you've lived in chaos for years. But the biggest change isn't even in our physical space, it's in how we make decisions now. Before, we'd buy things impulsively, say yes to commitments we didn't want, and fill every moment of silence with noise or distraction. Now, we pause and ask ourselves the same questions we asked about our possessions. Does this add value to our life? Does this align with who we actually are and want to be? Will this bring us peace or just more noise? Most of the time, the answer is no, and we've learned that saying no is one of the most powerful forms of self-care we can practice. We're not perfect at this, and we don't want to be. Japanese minimalism isn't about reaching some impossible standard of perfection. It's about continuously making small choices that turn down the volume on all the unnecessary noise in our lives. Some days we mess up and bring home something we don't really need, but now we notice it quickly and course correct instead of letting it spiral into years of accumulation like before. The quiet we found isn't about silence, it's about clarity. It's about having the mental and physical space to hear what actually matters to us instead of being drowned out by all the things society told us we should want. And honestly, we can't imagine ever going back to the loud, cluttered life we used to think was normal. If your life feels too loud right now, maybe it's time to turn down the volume. Not by adding more soundproofing or better noise-canceling headphones, but by removing the sources of noise themselves. Trust us, the quiet on the other side is worth it.